this great city and this great state of Orissa, which has contributed so much to the culture and history of India. In fact, I am so humbled as to be rendered almost speechless, which may not be a bad thing, then you don't have to hear my speech. But I have a job to do, and I take courage from the German poet Wolfgang Goethe, who would have told me, "Do not be so humble, dear sir, after all you are not that great." So taking courage from that, most humbly and respectfully, I would like to present my views on the topic of unleashing the human potential. Now there's supposed to be some kind of a gadget which helps me to move my presentation. It's not here. Can I get that? Where is it? Sorry, technology is getting the better of me. They had told me there would be a slide changer here, which was here about an hour ago, but somebody seems to have removed it. Thank you. Okay. Now, I first want to position the talk that I'm going to give to you. There are three basic choices that each one of us has to make, whether as an individual, as an organization, as a political party, as an NGO, name it. And these are the three questions. What do I do? Why do I do that? And how do we do it? And really the question is, where am I coming from and where do I want to go? And that is all linked up with the fundamental choice and the fundamental question, who am I, or who are we? And it is actually the answer to this question that provides us the direction to make choices in our lives, and that will be one of the central themes that will run through my presentation. I am not going to talk about strategy, structure, processes, metrics. That's not because they are not important. Of course, they are terribly important. You can't do anything unless you have these things in place. But for the purpose of my presentation, I am not directly going to talk about them. I will focus on something which I believe is the source of all greatness, is the source that takes people and organizations from being merely good to being great, which is that little fellow called the human being. One may say that instead of talking about human resource, perhaps we should talk about human source. And that's where I'm going to be focusing for the next 20 minutes. I also want to tell you that I'll be asking questions largely from the point of view of a leader. And everybody here is a leader. A leader is not only the CEO or the Prime Minister or the King or the President. A leader is anybody who has to make a decision and a choice, and anybody who impacts others. And I can hardly think of a single human being in the world who is in fact not a leader at some time, or at most times and at most places. So please remember that I'm focusing on questions from the point of view of the leader, and I'm not going to talk about structure, strategy, processes. I know I'm carrying coal to Newcastle, but still I want to remind you that there is a lot of research that shows that most of us operate at a very, very small potential. So inside each one of us, regardless of age, gender, background, position, education or lack of it, there lies inside each one of us a huge, huge store of wisdom, of energy, of passion, of the answer to all the questions that may come to us in our lifetimes, except that we are not aware of it. And even if we are marginally aware of it, we are not connected to that source. And the question that I am going to address is, how do we ignite that huge potential that is lying untapped? To do it both from the point of view of the individual and, more importantly, or equally importantly, from the point of view of groups, because that's what we operate in these days, as groups. But of course, a group is made up of individuals, and so the two are absolutely interlinked. Again, carrying coal to Newcastle, but just so that I can structure myself. We are living in what is known as the VUCA world, which is full of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, conflict, and most importantly, lack of trust. So in this kind of a world, how do we make those choices? What do we do? Why? And how? And to remind MBA students must be coming out of your ears, and even for the corporate types like me who wear ties and sport beers and pretend to know all the answers. The important thing is that the vision is really a dream. And if we don't have a dream, we can do nothing. Before action comes the thought. Before doing anything great is the dream. If we don't have a dream, if we don't nurture the dream, we can do nothing. I urge you, please have a dream. Please remember your dream. Please. There will be success and there will be failure. There will be bright days and there will be dark days. Through all of them, please believe me, what will really take you through is your dream. So I beg you, especially the young people here, have a dream. Do not ever forget your dream. Draw your energy from your dream, because at the end of the day, it is this dream that will take you through. The dream is really the purpose. It really is the answer to the question, who am I? And the dream for an organization or for an individual has to be a higher order dream. It cannot only be a dream about this is the top line or this is the bottom line or this is the attrition rate. Of course those things are important, but they are hardly the things that enable ordinary people to reach for the stars. To do that, we need to have a higher order dream. It is so important for to have a higher order. Karl Marx, you have nothing to lose but your chains. Mahatma Gandhi, I want freedom from the yoke of colonial rule. Martin Luther King, I want my equal rights. Now all of us don't necessarily have the ability to be yoked in to something as powerful of that. But surely we can dream of making a difference to our lives and to the lives of the people that we touch. Just to give you an example of what a higher order dream could be, I have put down there a few words which is really Mahindra Group just given as an example. We will challenge conventional thinking and innovatively use all our resources to drive positive change in the lives of our stakeholders and communities across the world to enable them to rise. This is what takes me and 160,000 people to work every day. This is what makes us look forward to Monday morning, because it gives us a sense of purpose that we are doing something to make a difference. So the basic point is, please have a dream, never forget your dream, and the dream is really the purpose and who I am, and it is this that will, especially when times are bad, become the most important thing. Your education, your KRAs, all that will fall into the background, and it is the dream and the purpose that will really come through. So be aware of who you are. Be aware of your dream, be aware of your purpose, and never give it up. Now the amazing thing is, I saw the presentation that was made before the speeches started, and a lot of what I'm saying actually was there. So I'm repeating things, I know that. But I have noticed that it's good to have a dream, but you also have to have the belief in yourself. Those words were used, I heard it, belief in yourself. Some of the speakers also talked about it. It is the power of intention is such a marvelous and such a potent force that people, great leaders use. You can see that photo. There's a cat, and the cat, she believes she's a lion, and by God she can be that. And I've seen it again and again and again in my life. It is people who believe in themselves. People who have a firm intentions, they are the people who do things. They are those that make a difference. It is not necessarily the people with 10 degrees and never came second in my life. They may not necessarily succeed. But it is those people who believe in themselves, who pick themselves up 100 times after they are hit on the jaw by the vicissitudes of life. It is such people who achieve great things. Now, I don't know how much time I have. I know we are running horribly late, but I want to tell a few stories. Do I have your permission to just embellish what I'm saying with a few stories so that I can drive the point home? Anybody heard of a lady called Bachendri Pal? Okay, there you are. Now, Bachendri was the first woman who climbed Mount Everest. She used to work for Tata Steel. She was a good friend of mine in Jamshedpur. And one day, we used to go often out into the hills and the lakes of Jamshedpur and sometimes do crazy things like crossing rivers on a rope when there was a flood down there. But it was crazy and interesting and exciting, and we broke barriers. So I asked Bachendri one day, I said, Bachendri ji, how come you decided to climb Mount Everest? And here is what she told me. These are her words. She said, Mr. Dubey, I come from a desperately poor family, from a small village located above Uttarkashi. Many days I would wake up in the mornings cold and hungry and angry with the world. And I would stand in the sun outside my little hut and look at the snow-capped Himalayas. And I said to myself, one day I'm going to climb the highest peak that exists in this world. I didn't know it was called Mount Everest. But I said, I'm going to do it. And she said, Mr. Dubey, it was that intention which opened doors, which opened windows, which brought into my life people who I never dreamt I could ever meet. And people, easy, of course it was not easy. Did I receive knocks? Did I fall down? Of course I fell down. But each time I fell down, I had the courage to get up because of my intention. Each time a door closed, 4 windows opened. And she said, Mr. Dubey, it was nothing but the power of intention that made me climb Mount Everest. And she climbed Mount Everest not once but many times. So I talked to you about the VUCA world. I want to now share with you 5 leadership behaviors that I believe are going to be critical in the days to come. The first I'm calling the whole new mind. It says, use both your left brain and your right brain. The left brain, as you know, is the brain of intellect, logic, reason, program. It is the brain that has really brought mankind from the prehistoric Stone Age through the Iron Age, Industrial Age, Information Age. But now we are going beyond the Information Age. Now we are getting into something which could be called the Conceptual Age and the VUCA world. In this world, it's not enough to use only the left brain. You have to combine with the left brain, the right brain. The right brain, well, is the brain of intuition, is the brain of empathy, of innovation, of connectivity, of making sense out of a mass of swirling uncertainty. It is those people who are able to combine the left brain and the right brain, to use the whole new mind in any situation, who in the days to come, in the brave new world, will hold the key to the kingdom. There are 2 kinds of leaders. One I'm calling multipliers and one I'm calling diminishers. Let me start with the diminishers. These are very clever, intelligent people, highly educated, but they have a compulsive need to be the best all the time. They have a compulsive need to know all the right answers. They have a compulsive need to control, to tell people what to do. In the brave new VUCA world, unfortunately, such people, clever and bright and educated though they may be, and by the way, this was the model that we grew up with. The leader knows it all. He will tell you what to do. Such people tend to diminish the engagement, the empowerment, the sense of ownership that people have, the desire for people to stand up and contribute, all that gets diminished by this great man called the diminisher. And so we are urging people, be multipliers of energy, of passion, of ownership. How do you become a multiplier? Multipliers are no less intelligent, they are no less educated, but they don't have a compulsive need to control. They respect people, they listen to people, they know that one person cannot possibly have all the answers. In fact, for them it is more important to focus on asking the right questions and on encouraging the people around them to come forth with their ideas and with their talents and unleash their potential. Such people get a great joy out of seeing 1,000 flowers bloom. And in the coming age, when we need to do more with less, we need multipliers rather than diminishers. And please remember, each time you want to control, each time you want to tell, I have the answer, stop for a minute and ask yourself, am I being a diminisher or am I being a multiplier? Innovation is going to be a key determinant of whether or not an individual, an organization, a nation is going to succeed. Innovation by its very nature requires you to take risk and to experiment. But if as a leader you rule through fear, if there is a culture of fear where each time a mistake is made, there is off with the head, or I don't know, rap on the knuckles. In school we used to get 6 strokes of the cane. Now that fear surely does not make people want to try new things and to experiment. Then we might as well stick to the accepted line, in which case you will have no innovation. So we are telling people, leaders, please do not create a culture of fear. Fear is there in any case. The most important or the overruling emotion in all our lives, whether we want to admit it or not, is fear. And the ultimate fear, as you know, is the fear of death. We all have it. It rules our lives. But as leaders, we have to create a culture in organizations where we know how to manage fear and, most importantly, know how to leverage failure. When you are experimenting, there will be failure. In fact, there will be more times failure than success. The important thing is not how many times we fail, but what we learn from each failure. You look at history. See whoever you think is great, Mahatma Gandhi, Abraham Lincoln. My God, you read Abraham Lincoln's biography. He is acknowledged to be the greatest ever US president that ever lived. Read his biography. The man only knew failure and failure and failure and failure and poverty and hopelessness, but he kept learning. Take anybody else, Babur, the gentleman who started the Mughal dynasty in India. I don't know how many of you have read his biography. That man had lost more battles and had experienced more failure than success till he came to the Battle of Panipat in 1526. I can give you countless examples. The important thing is, can we leverage failure? Because failure is inevitable if you take risk. I want to quote from, heard of a person called J.K. Rowling? Harry Potter? Okay. Now, you probably may have read this bit. It's a small quote from her commencement address at Harvard University, but it makes the point. It is impossible to live without failing at something unless you live so cautiously that you might as well not have lived at all, in which case you fail by default. The knowledge that you will emerge wiser and stronger from setbacks, that you will never truly know yourself or the strength of your relationships until both have been tested by adversity. Such knowledge is a true gift, and even though painfully acquired, it has been worth more to me than any qualification I ever earned, unquote. Now, this may sound a little Buddhistic, but actually it's very, very practical. We are living in an age of over-information and over-stimuli. The number of articles, case studies for people like me, the number of emails, the number of SMSs, Facebook, Twitter, meetings, running around like a chicken from early morning to late night. So people don't get the opportunity to go deep into anything. People don't get the opportunity to get into the flow. You must have heard of the concept of flow. Research shows that people are at their best, their most imaginative, the most innovative when they are in the flow, which means when they are capable of being here and now, when they are focused on what they are doing, when they can go deep, when they can give 100% of who they are, mind, body, soul, to what they do. It is not good enough when you are in karma. Once you have chosen what to do, when you are in action, when you are in your karma, it's not good enough to be 90% or 99% or even 99.99%. You have to give yourself 100%. Permit me to quote, "Look well to this day, for in its short course lie all the realities and verities of existence. The splendor of growth, the glory of action, the sorrow of separation. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day. Such is my salutation to the dawn." That's Kalidas, 14th century Indian poet. Very clear enunciation of the here and now. Who from time to time send dispatch riders asking Napoleon for instructions on what to do. So here we are. Here comes the horseback dispatch rider from General Blucher, comes in and hands over to Napoleon a piece of paper. Napoleon reads that. It's a dispatch from General Blucher asking for instructions. Napoleon thinks a couple of minutes and then he writes down his instructions. But before giving it to take to Blucher, Napoleon hands that piece of paper to his most important aide on the battlefield, Pierre. He gives that piece of paper to Pierre. Pierre studies it for 2 or 3 minutes, and then Napoleon asks him 2 or 3 questions. Depending on the answers that Pierre gives, Napoleon decides whether or not to send his instructions back to General Blucher. Guess who Pierre was? Pierre was the village idiot. He had an IQ of 60. Napoleon used to ask questions to check whether Pierre had understood what Napoleon was saying. And if Pierre had understood, Napoleon was reasonably sure that the general also would understand, and then he would send it. To my mind, this is a very dramatic and graphic illustration of the KISS principle. Keep your communication simple, stupid, so that even Pierre can understand it. The reason why I'm saying it is that in this world, most of us tend, in order to show how important we are, and in order to show how educated we are, in order to show how clever we tend to make our communication very, very complex. Now that's fine. You can talk about quadratic equations, you can draw parallelograms, put in linear quadratic equations. There's no end to it. The problem is that the person you're trying to communicate with may not understand what you're saying. And then what's the use of that communication? And I keep on coming against this again and again and again in life. If the leader cannot communicate simply, not simplistically, he has to think a lot, but the communication must be so simple that even the most stupid person can understand it. And it is really important that in life we follow the KISS principle. Heard of Genghis Khan? Oh boy. Okay, so Genghis Khan came roaring out of the plains of Central Asia in the 13th century AD. And in his life and in the life of his immediate descendants, the Mongols captured more territory than the Romans and the Greeks put together in all their history. What did Genghis Khan do? Genghis Khan did not try to play war and battle the same way as the Germans and the Persians and the Chinese did war. He did not try to do what they were doing better, but he completely changed the whole rules of warfare. Genghis Khan had no cavalry. He had no infantry, he had only cavalry. And therefore he had speed and surprise at his disposal. When his enemies were expecting him to engage with them from the east after 1 week, Genghis Khan would attack 1 day later from the west or from the north or from the south. So he completely changed. He had no infantry, he had only cavalry. The Mongols had much smaller horses. They were not as big as the mighty Germans or the Persians. But these guys used bows and arrows, and they used horses with such great skill that the enemy never got the opportunity to deploy their strengths, which was big men, big horses, big swords, heavy armor, all those things which were a huge advantage to these armies and which had actually enabled them to be great empires, became their biggest disadvantage. And Genghis Khan was able to create the greatest empire which mankind had ever known, only in 2 generations. So strategy is not about playing the game better. Strategy, breakthrough strategy, where you transform, where you unleash the potential, is about changing the game. Most important, I know I've been talking a lot, rambling on and on. When will this bearded goat stop talking? But if there's one word that I would like you to take back, and I know that's asking too much, it's this word on the screen, trust. If as a leader you cannot be trusted, and if in turn you are not able to trust your people, please believe me, you will never am. With my strengths, with my weaknesses, I have no shame in saying I don't know all the answers, but I will work with you. I will co-create with you, and I'm willing to change my views. But you can be sure that I'm not wearing a mask. You can be sure that I will behave no differently with the beggar who knocks on my window screen at a traffic crossing. I will behave no differently with him than I will with the Prime Minister of India or with any other great dignitary. Such is what creates trust. And of all things that I've talked about today, this is in fact the most important. And if you can remember it, I think I would have done my job. So, to try and put it all together, at the level of the organization, we are talking about creating tomorrow's company or tomorrow's organization in this VUCA world. It is about aligning knowing, which is knowledge, doing, which is execution, with being, which is who am I? What is my purpose? What is my dream? How do you align these 3 things in pursuit of the triple bottom line of profit, people and planet, and do that, unleash the potential of people by having a higher order purpose which guides all this knowing, doing and being, and to do it with a sense of pride. That is what creating tomorrow's organization or tomorrow's company or tomorrow's nation or tomorrow's individual for that matter, that is what it's all about. Finally, we will do great things. I have no doubt that everybody sitting here is going to be successful. You're going to climb many organizations. Some of you may even climb Mount Everest. But if you do that by sacrificing your principles, let me assure you it will be a very hollow victory. Success and making money is not the only thing. And I know I'm saying it to the wrong set of people. You come from a mighty organization, KIIT and KISS. You don't need to be told this. But I just want to remind you, please do not sacrifice your values as you go about being successful. Please remember to define success in more ways than just rising up an organization or making money or making profit. It's not for me to tell you what your value should be. For me, the 3 values which I would never give up are on the screen. Truth, the ability to speak the truth regardless of the consequences. Compassion, the ability to put myself into the shoes of the other person, and finally, service, seva, a spirit of seva. Many of us don't realize what miracles we have in our everyday life. We are so focused on all the things that we don't have that we forget the miracles that are there in our lives every day. I can see, I can walk, I can talk, I can hear, I have arms, I have legs, I have clothes to wear. I send my children to school, I have a roof over my head. When I'm sick, I can get medical aid. When I die, I will get a proper burial or a cremation. Just please look around you and see the millions and millions and millions of people for whom those things which we take for granted, which we never give a second thought to, are beyond their wildest dreams. If we can wipe a tear from the eyes of somebody who is in pain, if we can bring a smile onto the lips of someone who has known only poverty and despair and deprivation, there is no greater joy, there is no greater success than that. And I come now to the most important slide in my presentation. Oh no, sorry. Before that, I want your permission to just quote one last bit. I hope I have that piece of paper here. I just dropped some stuff here. Yeah. Oh, there you are. Okay. Today is another perfect day to defy the world's naysayers. Today, we will think bigger than our size. Today, we will refuse to accept limitations. Today, we will not be held back by the past. Today, we will focus on the future and never, ever blink. Today, we will break down another barrier, scoff at another convention, and use alternative thinking to solve another previously unsolvable problem. Today, we will accomplish something astounding and in the process, change someone's life for the better. Today, we will set an example for the world with boldness, with confidence, with relentless optimism. Good morning. Today is another perfect day to rise. I come now to the most important